Hi everyone and welcome to the Color Puff hat tutorial. So we're gonna start with chaining a number of stitches, and the number of stitches depends on your size, so please check the free pattern for your size. And then I will start slip stitching into the second chain, and then in every chain I will chain one and turn my work around and start slip stitching in the back loop only of every stitch. And every row will be the same: chain one, turn, and slip stitch in every stitch in the back loop. And continue like this until you have the amount of rows that are stated in the pattern for your size. And I will not show the full sequence of rows, so you can pause here if you want to finish your ribbing. Remember to make the ribbing relatively loose if you are a beginner to slip stitch ribbing. So now I have made all the rows, and now it's time to measure that this ribbing fits around the head of you or the person you want to give the hat to. It should stretch around the head with a little bit of stretching, but not very much. And now you will slip stitch through both short ends to close the circle. Insert in one end, insert through the other, and slip stitch through both layers. Now you turn your work inside out so that the seam is turned inwards, and you will start working horizontally along this edge here, and you will work in every row of the ribbing, or not actually every row, but what looks to be a row. So every vertical line on your work you will make one single crochet into the top of that line, and chain one in between. Chain one in between every single crochet, and make also the single crochet stitches quite loose, because this is going to be a waistcoat stitch pattern, and then you need to have relatively loose stitches in order to get into them on the next row or the next round. So continue working like this all around the ribbing. And there are timestamps if you want to pause and then jump forward to the next section you want to work on. So now I'm at the end of the round, sorry. And to close the round, I will slip stitch into the first stitch. And one important thing is that it's better to omit the last chain and instead just slip stitch directly after the last single crochet into the first stitch. And then you change colors, so you introduce the new color when slip stitching to close the round. Chain 2, yarn over and make a puff stitch in the first chain space. And now we will make one puff stitch in every chain space all around your work. And check the free pattern for the instructions for the puff stitch. And there's no note that there's no chain 1 in between here. We're just making puff stitches all around. And here I was making it a little bit slower for you to see how the puff stitch is made. This is how it will look after a few puff stitches. Here I'm at the end of the round, and I will make the last puff stitch in the same place where the chain 2 starts. So you make the last puff stitch over the chain 2 almost. Otherwise there will be a gap. You can count the number of puff stitches to see that they are the same as in the pattern. Change to the main color when you slip stitch in the first puff stitch to close the round. And now you can cut off this yarn, this color. Chain 1 and single crochet in the first chain space where you are standing. Chain 1 and single crochet in each chain space all around. So single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, chain 1 all around. And remember to make the single crochet quite loose. Now I'm at the end of the round. Single crochet, and remember to skip the last chain and just slip stitch in the first stitch. Now we will work the waistcoat stitch for the first time, and here it's important that you put your hook through between the two front bars of the stitch, but also a little bit to the right. If you see here how you put the hook, so it should go to the right of the third thread that you can see on the back. Otherwise your work is going to spiral. And here it's very good if you made the stitches quite loose, otherwise you will have some trouble getting into the stitches. And then consider restarting and making the stitches more loose. So the pattern repeat is waistcoat stitch into the waistcoat from previous round and chain 1. And this is how it's going to look. Now it's time to make the second round of puff stitches. Introduce your second contrast color when you close the round with the slip stitch. Chain 2, again the same, first puff stitch in the next chain space. And this round is exactly the same like the previous puff stitch round, so I'm not going to show it in detail. Keep working all around. Here I'm at the end of the round, and it's time to make the last puff stitch and to change the color. Again, we make the last puff stitch into the same place where you made the chain 2 at the beginning of the round. Introduce the main color, and here you can choose if you want to cut the yarn or just pull it, and I've chosen not to cut the yarn. Again, chain 1 and single crochet into the same place where you are standing. Chain 1, single crochet in every chain space, and this is the same like on the row after the first puff stitch round. Here I have worked the number of rounds that the pattern states for the size I'm making, so check the free pattern for that before the first decrease row. So now I'm going to show the first row of decreases. So take 4 stitch markers. It is possible to make it without stitch markers, but then you need to be careful with keeping track of where the decreases should be. And important here is that you are counting only the waistcoat stitches, because it's easier to count like that. But remember not to count the chains when you are putting the markers. And now you will start working the decrease round. Start working as usual, chain 1, waistcoat stitch, chain 1, until you are 2 stitches before the marker. There should be 2 waistcoat stitches before the marker. Now you will make a waistcoat stitch 2 together, and you make that by inserting the hook into 2 consecutive waistcoat stitches, as if you would work a waistcoat stitch, and just work them together. Chain 1, work into the marked stitch without decreasing, put back the marker if you want to keep it, and again waistcoat stitch 2 together. Insert hook, and single crochet 2 together. And you continue like this, work until 2 waistcoat stitches before the marked stitch, decrease, work the marked stitch and decrease again until you reach the end of the round. Also remember here not to work too tightly. Close the round, chain 1, waistcoat stitch, keep working as usual. I'm going to show you how to work over the decreases from last round. when you work through them, make sure to go through both waistcoat stitches. And then you just work as usual over the other stitches. Go through both stitches. And keep the markers if you want, or skip them to be able to work faster. But if you're unsure, it's better to keep the markers to keep track of where to make the next decrease. Check the pattern for where you make the decreases for the size you are making. Also make sure to measure to try the hat on, if it's for you or for another person, to try on that person to see that it seems to fit. This is the second decrease round, and the number of rounds will vary depending on the size. Count that you have the correct amount of rounds and make the second decrease round in the same way as the first one. Work until you have 2 waistcoat stitches left before the marker. Make a decrease by waistcoat stitching 2 together. Chain 1 waistcoat stitch into the marked stitch, chain 1, and make a decrease again. Put back the marker if you want to keep it. Continue in this way until you have done all the decreases for your size. And I'm not going to show the full detail of the following round since they are different for every size. But the size info is available in the free pattern, which is available on Ravelry and linked in the description box below. Now I've done all the decrease rounds, and I'm gonna show the last decrease round, where you waistcoat stitch 2 together all over the round. So waistcoat stitch 2 together, chain 1, all over the round. On this last round, we're just going to single crochet into every chain space that we made in between the decreases on the last round. So 1 single crochet in every chain space without any chain 1 in between. Now the hole is so small that you can just stitch it together from the inside. Turn the hat inside out and just attach the thread and stitch the hole together. I really hope you enjoy this pattern. Just make sure to fasten your loose ends, and I hope you or the person you made it for will enjoy it. Bye bye!